Now coming to the next question, right? Who can be a PM? And that this is a question I keep getting very often. And I think what we have to realize is to be a good PM, you need to have three core skill sets, right? And anyone who either has those skill sets or is putting in an effort to gain those skill sets can definitely move into a PM role and excel at doing that, right? So there's no limitation as to who can get into a PM role. And I'm talking from experience here. I have been in the product management industry and technology industry for more than 12 years now. And I've seen people moving from sales roles to operations roles, from content design roles, from completely different roles like design and architecture roles, like physical, building actually, how do I put it, like civil architecture roles, right? Like all of them get into PM roles, and they also excel in being a product manager. So there's no limitation as such, as long as you keep a very open mindset and keep learning, right? So now talking about the three core skill sets that you need as a product manager, the first and foremost is strong problem solving skills, because as a PM you are eventually solving problems. Either it is customer problems or business problems, or maybe problems which are preventing you from executing well. So how can I change a process to make my execution more efficient, right? At the core of it, you're solving a problem, and by solving that problem, you're delivering value to your business or sector, right? So you have to be very good at breaking down problems and solving them, right? The second core skill set is having empathy not just for your customers, but even your stakeholders, right? What you have to understand is a PM, as in most roles as a PM, you would not have direct reporting for all the stakeholders that you would be working with, right? So you have to continuously influence them, right? You have to understand what their motivations are, what their incentives are, align them with your vision and what you want to build as part of your product. So that is very important for you to kind of succeed in your role. That's where having a strong empathy for both customers and stakeholders will help you move forward and make progress in a very constructive way. The third more core skill that you need as a product manager is good storytelling skills, right? Because at the end of the day, you need to, as a product manager, you're thinking long term, and you have a certain idea in terms of how you want the product to look like 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, and you have to make leadership and everyone rally behind you. Let's say today you have 3 developers in your team and you have a certain idea of a product, and in order to develop that, you need 10 developers to work with you. But how do you get that additional 7 developers? You have to sell your vision to your leadership, to your management, and kind of convince them to put more resourcing, put more bandwidth behind you, right? So you have to be very good at communicating your idea, your vision, your roadmap, and convincing them. That's where you need a very good storytelling skills for yourself to kind of succeed in this role, right? So these are the 3 core skill sets that you need to develop. Now, depending on what your background is, what you've experienced in your life, you might be already good at some of these things, and you might need to develop slightly better in some of these roles, and that's completely up to you to kind of build those skills, right? Now, traditionally, we've seen engineers and marketeers kind of move into product management more often because they bring in one core skill set to the table. Engineers understand technology, marketeers understand customers and sales, right? But today there's no such limitation, right? Anyone can move into a product management role. And one of the key questions that I keep getting every now and then is, does a PM need to know software coding, or does he need to be from a software background? Again, just addressing that elephant in the room, there's no such limitation. I have seen people coming from every different background and succeeding in the role. So there's no such limitation, right? The only advantage that you get while coming from a software background is you probably know the terminology and you can converse well with engineers. But even if you're not from that background, it's only a matter of a couple of months or 3 months by which you'll have that understanding. You can start bridging that gap very comfortably. So, and this is just an extension of the previous slide, and these are just 4 example personas I have in front of you, but this is no way comprehensive and representative of what you guys are what backgrounds you guys are coming from, right? These are just example personas, and if you take a look at it, right, the first person I'm talking about here is a fresher, right, who is fresh out of college, and this can be an undergraduate coming out of a BTech institute, or maybe a BCom or a BBA, whatever it is, right? Or it could be a postgraduate after doing his MBA or whatever it is, right? Now, the kind of strengths that they bring to the table, they are curious, they are very, very curious, right? And they want to contribute. They want to make a difference in whatever they want to get into. They come with a lot of energy, and it might be an underestimation, but you need a lot of energy to actually succeed in a PM role, because you, in more often than not, you're in a driver's seat and you have to show proactiveness and ownership to move things ahead, right? And these freshers also bring in a very fresh perspective because they are unbiased by the challenges that happen within an industry or a company, right? They are completely unbiased and they're coming from a very neutral perspective. But at the same time, what they haven't experienced is they don't have the domain knowledge of the industry, so they need to develop that. They don't understand how organizations operate, how different stakeholders interact with each other, so they need to understand those dynamics and figure out how to engage with them. And like always in India, you learn a lot of theory, but in order to apply them and succeed in your role, you need to do a lot of unlearning and relearning to kind of apply your knowledge and succeed in your role, right? But there's no such limitation. Again, freshers today have ways to get into product management in India today. There are a lot of companies which offer APM roles, associate product manager roles, which you can get into even if you're fresh out of college, right? Then the second persona here, which I've talked about, is a software engineer. And in the past, I talked about like mostly software engineers or marketers have been the people who have get into product management. Now, if I talk about software engineer, what they already know is the understanding of technology. So it's easy for them to understand feasibility when you're building a product. What is feasible? What is not feasible? How much time will it take? What can be the challenges which I would face while building a product? Those are things they are already better at. And they also come with a very long-term thinking mindset, because as a software developer, you're always thinking, how do I want to evolve my platform in the longer term? So you have a very long-term thinking mindset. But at the same time, you also are, most software developers are perfectionists, right? They want to have exact details of how the software should behave. They need very specific details, and they push people like us, product managers, to give us the exact details of what needs to be coded. The PRD needs to be very, very refined and everything, right? So, but when you get into a product manager role, there are 2-3 things that you need to start doing differently, right? One, they probably don't have that much of business knowledge, right? And they need to adapt to that and kind of start understanding business knowledge. What is the profit and loss statement? What is the company's strategy? What is the company trying to do to get to higher revenue or higher profitability in the future? So they need to get that business knowledge, right? Understanding. They also need to start thinking broader, right? They cannot think just about software. They have to think about business. They have to think about design. They have to think about data, everything, right? So they have to keep everything, all stakeholders and all different dimensions in mind while building a product. The third is dealing with ambiguity. A lot of time when you are working as a product manager, you are just given a problem statement and you're not given any direction in terms of how do you solve that problem, right? And it's upon you to kind of break down that problem and build your roadmap and identify what products or features you need to build. So that's what probably a software engineer needs to work upon to actually become better at in a role of a product manager. Now, if I talk about a marketer, he or she brings a different set of skill sets to the table. They understand customers very well. They are probably very good at execution and getting things done, but probably they haven't explored leveraging technology that much, right? Now they have to start thinking in order to achieve my goals, how do I leverage technology? I cannot just rely on manual operations or manual processes to get things done. I have to build scalable things for the future. So I have to leverage technology. And a lot of times you're also very thinking in the very short term. I have a target of doing X number of sales in this month. So what is the quickest way to achieve that target? What can I do in the next 1 week to achieve that target? That is the mindset sometimes they have, right? In order to be better at a product management role, you have to start thinking longer term. Think like 5 years down the line. What should the product look like and build for it? So these are some of the personas, right? And I'll not talk about architect. I think you get the point, right? I think but the common thing across this is there's no such limitation as to who can get into a product manager. Each of these personas can get into a product management role. What you have to understand is there are some skills that you already possess by what you have done in the past, and there are some things you need to learn or develop, and you have to identify very consciously, go through or scan through what are the competencies you need as a product manager, which are those where I probably need to develop my skills further, and then start putting in an effort to learn those, right? As long as you do that, there's no limitation as to who can get into a product manager's role.